We don't have an intro to this podcast. Maybe we'll have one later.
And I'm back. Hello, this is the Film Crew podcast. My name is Quan, and it is currently November 7th, 2021. Now, most people will be participating or are currently participating in the timeless tradition known as No Nut November. My heart goes out to all my fellow gamers who are fighting the battle against nutting. I unfortunately can't participate because I failed on November 1st, 12 a.m. and 1 second. uh, Anyways, No Nut November didn't remind me of a time back in my past. Uh, I didn't really have cable or satellite, so I didn't have access to things like Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon. I I had what did I have? I had a small like cable box with 11 free channels, and I believe the movie channel, which was on like channel 69 or some bullshit like that. Uh, so I had things like 4 Kids and PBS Kids. Uh, but one of the things that I did have for sure that I loved watching was it was on channel out in the LA area. It was channel 11. It was Fox, and it was from 8 p.m. in 30-minute increments until 10. Two shows that I loved watching was The Simpsons, followed by King of the Hill, and then The Simpsons. And after at 10, it was the 10 o'clock Fox 11 10 o'clock news, which I didn't really care about because I was a kid. Uh, Not really much to say about The Simpsons. I really love The Simpsons. Unfortunately, it's still continuing, and now it's just a corporate conglomerate, kind of like the SpongeBob, where they're trying to like milk as much money as possible, and now it kind of just sucks. The King of the Hill, however, is not like that, and that's because it ended, and very reasonably so, right? Because I know the King of the Hill is like something special. People still talk about it to this day, and I wouldn't say it's so much of a cult classic as it is just a classic. Not many. I did say a lot of people are talking about it. I kind of lied. I don't think that many people are talking about it, but it's still like if anyone watched King of the Hill, if you talk to them about it, they'd be like, "Oh, I remember that show. It was so fucking good." Um, and the reason why I think King of the Hill is so good today is, besides the fact of this character development being good and the story and the storyline, is the fact that it ended, and it ended with all questions being answered, because you have the main plot of King of the Hill in the first place is the families of Rainey Street, particularly the Hill family. But it also ended with questions being answered like Boomhauer's real job, because you never really find out until this moment that he was a Texas Ranger. Uh, Nancy and Dale, which kind of sucked because Joseph really wasn't in the picture. But Nancy and Dale's story ends with them having such a great relationship, especially since Nancy kind of cheated on Dale, and that was kind of like her biggest plot. Uh, their relationship kind of is stronger than ever. Luann's arc also ended pretty good, because her whole arc was she didn't really have any strong parental figure until she got to the Hill family. She got taken in by the Hill family because her mother was a drunk, abusive piece of shit, and her dad was, not kind of. I was he a drunk? Well, the point is he was also a piece of shit, and It ends with her in a strong foundation of a family with her husband Lucky being really supportive. Uh, her daughter Gracie is in a loving home with Luann and Lucky, being a great like parental figures to her. Who else is it? Con and Min's arc with their relationship with Connie, because Connie's like the stereotypical smart Asian kid, and they're just like, oh, fucking, just take a break, which was, I think, the first time ever they ever told her to take a break, besides, maybe there was a couple times, but the point is, they give her a break because she is so well off in the I guess the traditional Asian family of being really smart and things like that. Uh there is one family that the ending kind of missed, but not really, because I believe Jeff Boomhauer, one of the creators of the show, he kind of talked about Bill's story arc and how his arc was going to end in the show, because Bill's whole thing was the fact that he was in a an abusive relationship with fucking what's her face, Lenore. Her name was Lenore. Her leaving, and Bill was kind of like wrecked because he was like a star. He was a I believe a tank operator. He had big muscles, and he's like it was a situation of his glory days getting kind of destroyed by his marriage. And what was supposed to happen, but they didn't have enough time to, like, I guess, put it in the show, was Bill opened up his fridge and took out the last piece of the wedding cake of his marriage, and he throws it away, kind of symbolizing the fact that he finally does move on from his marriage and he can like grow up to live happily ever after. And I guess the biggest uh arc was the Hill family, because we do like follow their family, and their their whole thing was, Hank wanted to get close to Bobby, his son, but Bobby didn't really have anything in common with Hank. Hank lived in a very patriarchal family, uh, grew up to have like this traditional view of the world and family values. Bobby was born into a different time, so he was kind of more free form. He grew up with a different society, and they never really, except for a few times, they never really had a sense of common thingies. But it ends with them grilling meat together, because that's like something they have in common, and they live happily ever after. And Peggy kind of, it kind of sucks, because Peggy's, I guess, ending was literally just her family is happy and that makes her happy. We don't really see too much of an ending with her, except for that. Which, bringing up Peggy, I think the biggest thing, it's one of those things where I think the entire community of King of the Hill can kind of agree that nobody really likes Peggy, because she's really narcissistic, she's really arrogant. Um, I like to think of it as a character that's hateable but is also loved because of that. Um, in the beginning, she wasn't really as narcissistic and arrogant, and she cares about her family, kind of like in the same sense that Hank cares about his family, with the traditional Texas values. And I think at some point there's a theory that Peggy becomes narcissistic after her accident in season the finale of season 2 and the beginning of season 3, she gets into an accident where she pretty much goes skydiving, but her parachute fails and she hits the mud sinking in, and she survived that, which is pretty fucking amazing. I don't really, that's a feat of its own. But I think the theory was that after something happened where, well, it kind of makes sense that she's going terminal velocity down to zero in like in a second. She wasn't she got a lot of brain trauma from that, and that's kind of where her narcissistic tendencies started to form. And then later on in the season, or later on in the series, she starts to like show all of the narcissism that people really hate. I like to think of her very loosely. If you, I guess, drink 200 beers and get super beer goggles and you squint really hard, she kind of reminds me of a shitty series character, not the character itself, but the shitty series. The character was really good. Tywin Lannister of Game of Thrones. Tywin Lannister was a great character, again, but he was also kind of a piece of shit. But if you also squint really hard and think really hard about it, Tywin Lannister's whole arc was he wants to do whatever he can for the honor of his family and his family name, so his kids can be proud and won't be laughed at. Because I think that was like his big thing was he hates being laughed at. He wants to be taken seriously. The reason why I say Peggy is kind of like Tywin is because she has her arc of wanting to really take care of her family in the way that she grew up, her traditional values. Um, and some people might give me examples like the time Bobby kind of like not really challenged her, but there was a time where Bobby wanted to pass home ec, so he does really well, and that kind of threatened Peggy. But when you think about it, it makes sense because her traditional values is of her being good at things around the home, even though she tells Bobby, hey, rightfully so, hey, just because you're a male doesn't mean that you can't be good at home ec. Just as similarly, just because you're female doesn't mean that you're only good at being like the homemaker. Um, that being said, even though she has those values, she still felt threatened because Bobby is taking over her role. And most people would see that as a sign of, oh, Peggy is a piece of shit that doesn't really care about her family. But when you really squint hard, wouldn't it be the fact that she wants Bobby to do well in home ec in his like life when when he finally grows up and finds someone she wants him to be, she doesn't want him to take the homemaking role of her role so much as she wants him to grow up to be able to do that, but kind of don't take her, because when you think about it, her role in the Hill family is a wife and mother. If Bobby takes that role, she doesn't really have too much. She does have like things like Boggle and her writing and her musing, her muses, but inside the family, she doesn't want Bobby to take that role. I don't know, man. Honestly, like Peggy does care. I don't really see that example as her being a piece of shit so much as she wants her place in the role to be not threatened by Bobby, even though Bobby just wanted to pass home ec. I don't know, that's just my thing. Peggy does suck in other things like Spanish because she accidentally kidnaps a young Mexican girl from Mexico because she doesn't know Spanish and she doesn't know that she accidentally kidnapped a kid. But she does have other things like she does one of the things is she does really care about Luann. Um, and one of the examples is an episode where Luann is taken by, I can't remember his name, but it was the episode of her going to a seminar, getting spotted by a CEO of a pork industry person, and then he wanted her to be exactly like the mascot, and he showed signs of schizophrenia, and it got to the point where Peggy saw that to be a she could fall into an abusive relationship with him, and she pretty much saves the day. Hank didn't really see too much of the CEO's like dark side. Peggy did, so she got saved by that, or Luann got saved by that. I don't know. I people hate Peggy. I don't. I love to hate her. In my opinion, she is pretty narcissistic, but at the end of the day, her character was well written to the point where I kind of, I don't know. I liked her as a character. But yeah, I just want to talk about King of the Hill for a little bit, just because it is my favorite show, and today you still have like people paying homage to King of the Hill, like Meat Canyon was his animation, and there's another animation of a parody of Pokemon. There's a parody of My Little Pony, and you have YouTube Poops. Remember that YouTube Poop of King of the Hill, still around. Um, so I think people really do enjoy King of the Hill, not like the other show, Game of Thrones, which nobody talks about. Which you know, I think that this kind of shows what can happen with a show that is so good compared to a show that was really good but ended so poorly. And it's the fact that if you haven't noticed, maybe people have, but nobody really talks about Game of Thrones anymore because of how poor it ended. It kind of destroyed literally everything. Whereas King of the Hill is still talked about today or remembered fondly. But but yeah, that is about it for me. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I have my own gaming channel, Quanta's Gaming. Gaspar, who wasn't here today. Gaspar underscore the underscore creature. You can find us on any podcast channel ever. I didn't know that. Literally every channel. You can find us on Instagram at Film Crew 7. You can find us on Twitter, even though we're never gonna post, at Crew Film. Make sure to like if you liked, subscribe if you're not. My name is Quan, and I'll see you all next time.
We also don't have an outro either. We'll probably have one soon.